Okay, so a very warm welcome to you all. Welcome to Trance Mediumship Community. I can see some familiar faces, so very welcome. And those that are new as well, a very warm welcome to you as well. My name's Joe Rowley Flynn, and it's a pleasure to have you here. So, this free lecture event today, the topic that we are going to be exploring is unfolding the Trance Power Foundation. And so you would have seen the poster that we advertised out and what we're going to explore today. So if you have got a piece of paper and a pen and you want to just write some notes, feel free. If you want to just listen, then please feel free as well. Okay. But there's going to be a talk at the start, and then that will be led into an exercise with what we're talking about today. So, okay, everybody. Unfolding that trance power. First of all, when we are experiencing trance mediumship, what we have to recognize is that there is a great power that we start to become aware of, that spiritual power that we work with as mediums. And so, if you are an evidential medium, if you are a trance medium, we work with what's called the power. We have an understanding that there is an energy, an auric field, and there's also our soul, our spirit. And through the soul is really where that bond of communication happens, through that field of power and through your consciousness as well. And so I'm always saying there's two aspects of development, of learning how to quieten the mind so that we can then move into the power of the soul. So we have the energy and we have the consciousness. And when we start to quieten the mind, is when we can start to experience the spirit world there, is when we can start to really feel those spiritual senses. Okay. Now, when we move into the power, there's various different intentions we can give sitting in the power. And so if you're feeling a bit drained, if you think, oh my goodness, I feel so out of balance, then it's lovely to nourish yourself, to really be at one with the power of your soul and to just sit with your soul, not for spirit communication, not for any of that blending, just to be at one with you. And that in itself is really the starting point, is really the basic foundation for any of us. The stillness and the calm of the conscious mind, the discipline of that conscious mind, and then the great power itself that we sit within. But as we start to experiment and work in different aspects of mediumship, there is different frequencies. And so if you are an evidential medium, we know that that power that we use is very active. You're in a very active, heightened state of awareness. You're still moving through those layers of consciousness, those layers of the altered states, but it's an active power. But when we are unfolding trance, that's where it changes, because the power itself is still the same, but it starts to move on to a different frequency. And that's more of a passive power. It's more of a deeper power. And when you sit within that trance energy, a lot of you may start to experience sensations of heaviness, as though you're moving out of yourself, as though you're losing a part of this world and moving into the spirit world, to that blending. And so what we've got to recognize is how that power manifests for us, because we can get our conscious mind into a very relaxed state. But when that blending with the spirit world is happening, the spirit world needs something from us. And that something is the power. They need energy in order for the growth, in order for that blending, and for them to come just that little bit closer, just that little bit deeper. And so we can move from lighter states of consciousness with the blending of trance into deeper, depending on how much we have embraced that frequency and really aligned our soul with the frequency of the trance vibration. And so that's something that I want to explore with you all, because not only do we have our own energy, we have our own soul. Each of you are so unique. You all give something to life, and you all give something to your abilities. And so each of us has a particular power that we can expand, that the spirit world can be aware of. And through that power, there are certain abilities that can help with your growth and that the spirit world are aware of. And so it's recognizing, first of all, how can you fully step into your soul? How can you learn to understand that higher consciousness? For each of us, that's very different. For some of you, you may go on a spiritual retreat to look at the spiritual nature of self. For others, it's just having that dedication once a day to just sit in the silence, learn the art of sitting and disciplining the mind into that peace and that power. But we've got to learn how to open the soul, how to rise onto that level of the soul so that we can become aware on a completely different level. Because we can't really become aware of the spirit world unless we first of all become aware of our own eternal being, our own eternal spirit. And so through that process is where they can then start to let you know that they are there. And so a lot of us will sit there, won't we? Sometimes we'll sit in the dark and go, "Are you there, spirit?" And you're waiting and nothing happens. But that's because you're not doing anything. You've got to manifest the power to the spirit world to allow their world to be here, okay? So that it can become very much enriched in this world. And that's what trance mediumship does, okay? That's what communication in general does. When we really move into the power, there comes that change between this world and the spirit world. And then from that particular aspect comes the communication, comes the deepness. Perhaps you may notice the medium moving into deeper states of and seeing overshadowing. And so you see, it all depends on that energy and that frequency. So that's my first thing that I advise to each of you is to really understand your power. Learn to build your power, learn to energize and magnetize you. Okay. Because the stronger your energy is, the more they're going to be able to blend and come closer to you. Okay. So that is part of that blending and surrendering process. But as we manifest and build the power of the soul, and we move our awareness onto the spiritual, and the senses become heightened of the seeing, the feeling, the hearing within the soul, we automatically start to become aware of those that work with us in the spirit world. And so when that happens, there is an actual power that the spirit world bring in with trance. And so when you sit and you invite your team to come and blend with you, I tend to start to feel this heaviness coming around me. I start to feel a tangible power within the air that starts to become very electric, very alive. Um, and it seems to allow me to just surrender and go deep. But often, you see, when that happens, we sometimes don't understand what's going on. You may find that you're feeling very expanded, you're having all these different sensations going on, but then you drop out of it. You go, "Oh my goodness, I don't know what that is," and then you stop. And that's due to fear. You see, there's a bit of fear there. But all that's happening is you are becoming aware of the presence and the power of the spirit world joining you. And for each of us, that experience is going to be different. Okay. For some of you, it will come in various different ways, you know. And so it's about recognizing what is your own energy and what is the spirit world's. And so we can have self-induced techniques with trance, okay, where we can relax, get ourselves into an altered state, move ourselves into that power, and try and get ourselves there. But that requires effort. And the more that we try, the harder it becomes. And the more that the conscious mind is still there. And how many of you, of your trance, really try your best to surrender that conscious mind, and it's still there, it's still constantly there, isn't it? And so it really is about, first of all, learning how you can calm the conscious mind, how you can prepare yourself before you then sit within the trance energy and the trance states. So it's not about trying too much, but it's about learning how you can align yourself energetically with that trance power. Okay. And as we know, the trance power itself is very passive. So anything that's going to allow your energy to become passive is where you need to start. Okay. All right. So it's really about learning how you can relax, how you can start to move and let go into that trance power to start with. And once you feel more relaxed and more comfortable, it becomes more natural. You're not trying, you see, you're just allowing. And so when you allow something, you're surrendering already. You're surrendering to what is already there within each one of you. And so that's what we've got to do. But it's just the conscious mind that really starts to stop us. And we think we've got to do something so difficult to get there and go through all these different exercises of trying and trying. But actually, it's about the process of simplicity. And the more simple you keep it, the better. So if you're at the start with your trance mediumship and you're wanting to understand how to blend with the spirit world, before you blend with them, understand how to get yourself out of the way. Understand how to move yourself into the stillness. And then naturally, the power of the soul will start to rise. It will start to be there. And the other thing that I wish to express is to pay attention to the power of intention. Okay. That is important. Because where your energy goes, where your awareness goes, is where your power goes. It's the same power. It's not different. We're not putting it in two different boxes. It's the same spiritual essence of you, that you're just learning to align it with that particular intention. So if that is, I'm going to sit to give an evidential reading today, and so it's aligning your frequency with the spirit world in that active energy. You can't be passive with evidential. We know that it becomes a bit tough. And so when we explore trance, what is it we're learning to do? To surrender the conscious mind, to let go, to build the power for the spirit world, to be able to come and blend, to allow it to become this very relaxing experience. It should always feel relaxing. Trance should make you feel rejuvenated. There's a great healing energy to it as well. But just notice that soon as you create that intention, and prayer is a wonderful way. When we start with prayer, we're really speaking from the essence of the soul. And from the essence of the soul, that's moving out to the spirit world. Okay. And so as you are offering that prayer, that's your foundation. That's you saying, okay, I'm going to start to align my energy with you. This is what I want to work upon. This is what I want to build and understand. And so through that, then comes the experience. And that experience is where the power starts to build, sorry. And each of you will experience that differently. So it's about, first of all, understanding your energy and then becoming aware of the spirit world. And the fascinating thing is when we ask the spirit world to come close, rather than us being in this self-induced state, trying to get ourselves there, naturally the spirit world bring in a power over you. And that's called a spirit-induced trance state. And some of you may have heard of that term before. There was a wonderful pioneer, Andrew Jackson Davis, that explored this, that he recognized that there was this spirit-induced trance state that just he could move into. But also a lot of our old pioneers were very natural workers. And what I mean by that is they would sit there and the spirit world would just start to overlap with them and they would surrender into that. And that's what I'm talking about with this trance power. It is a trance power that the spirit world bring in. And so we are here physically, okay? Our body's here. And often at times we find it difficult to really become spiritually aware, okay? But behind the scenes, when you see a trance medium sitting and blending, there's a lot going on with that person's team. They are manipulating and moving and getting that energy aligned and where it needs to be. And so sometimes when we sit for spirit, is the terminology, sometimes we can sit and think nothing's happened. But to me, that's a good thing, because no time ever wasted in the presence of spirit, okay, is ever is never wasted, okay. All right, that time being within the presence of spirit is never wasted, because there's always something going on that you don't need to be aware of at that moment, but they're helping to adjust the frequency, the vibration, the energy. And often that's why if you're sitting and then let's say throughout, halfway through your sitting and your building, all of a sudden you feel a difference, you feel a change, you feel that something is happening. And that's because you've given the spirit world time to manifest that energy. Okay. So we've got to give them time, but we've also got to open our soul's perception to become aware of the power they are bringing in. And that's really what that trance power is. It's a trance vibrational energy. And when we ask the spirit world to come close, it starts to happen. We start to feel heavy. We start to feel as though we're losing a sense of self and that we're moving into that blending with the spirit world. But what we tend to not do is bring it in closer. Okay. We tend to, we're aware of it, but then we don't use it enough to help us align our soul with them. And so this is where it moves into surrendering and blending. Okay. So the surrendering and the blending really is where we need to move into. And usually with trance, that's what we are achieving. First of all, the power of the soul, and then feeling the presence of the spirit world there with us, noticing that change. But then we don't tend to do much with that. And we sometimes forget to stop breathing as well, as that energy starts to take place, because it's quite dense, it's quite heavy. And so we have to remember to use the power of the breath as well. And the power of the breath is really going to relax you into the experience. That relaxes you into the calmness, the surrendering. Okay. And so it also moves us into a deeper attunement. And that's what we're learning to do. So we are making this foundation strong. So that power that the spirit world bring in, not only do they just bring it in, but we start to actually bring it into us, into the consciousness. If the conscious mind is perhaps a little bit all over the place, then we just bring that power in. We align it with the soul through the breath. And when we align that trance power with the soul that the spirit world are bringing in, we start to feel the closeness becoming deeper because you're allowing it to. You're not just freezing in the middle of it. You're moving with it. You're surrendering with that power. And that's what they want. That's what they need from each of you, is to move with that energy, is to surrender into it so that you can start to recognize how your altered state starts to deepen with them. Okay. So that's really what I want to share with you all, is first of all, notice that in order to become aware of this trance power that the spirit world bring in, it's going to take you a while, okay? Because each of us are at different stages within our perception, within our awareness of our soul and how we feel things. So it's about learning, first of all, to calm that mind, as I've said, to learn the importance of your own soul. Do you understand how to move into that power first, and then bring in that energy in that the spirit world bring in to help align that frequency, to help deepen the attunement? Because when we look at trance mediumship, the development of it is very much the attunement, the blending, and then what naturally follows is the communication. But that communication can only really happen if they've got everything else where they need it to be. So one thing I'm going to say is, when you're developing trance, there's one word that comes to mind, and that's patience. And so patience has got to become your friend, because it's not about instant results. It's about learning to take your time. And for those of you that know me, I'm always saying in class, take your time, because if you rush, then how are you going to really deepen that surrendering process? How are the abilities going to present themselves? So we have to recognize with trance, it is energy, it is power that the spirit world are relying upon with us. Okay. We can also have spontaneous trance phenomena that can occur. If somebody shows real signs of potential with trance, then that's again really where a spirit induced trance state happens. And usually that's the spirit world that are being able to come forward to say this is what we can do. But you'll find with spontaneous trance that it will happen for a little bit and then it will go, because there's not enough power to sustain that communication, you see. So it's showing that there is the potential of trance there, and that's why it's happening. And so through that, then it's about you learning how to sit within that energy, how to discipline yourself. So the other thing that's important is, once you've learnt how to feel comfortable with the energy that the spirit world brings in, then that's when we move into sitting for spirit. And for me, that's different to sitting just within our own power, our own soul. Sitting with spirit is really where we're learning to be one with that discarnate being that is coming to work with you, that wants to blend their consciousness, their thoughts, their awareness, their soul essence over you. And it's not the physical body that they are overshadowing, it is the soul body. And so, depending on where you are with your soul and the auric field and the energy of that, will then allow this process to happen. So sitting for spirit, once you've understood this foundation, then it's about using it. And it's sitting and taking your time to just sit within the trance energy with them. So it's about dedication. In order to really improve that blending and that surrendering and enhance that trance foundation, we've got to then set some time aside to become aware of what we're doing. And so the more we create that space for that to happen, the better. Because then the spirit would have gone, yes, at last they're sitting down and wanting to understand. You see, they're not rushing around. And so that's good, because what you will find is when you sit within the trance power with them, it will become more natural. You won't be trying as hard because your mind and the training that you're giving yourself will naturally go there. Okay, it's like anything. The more we work on it, the more naturally we move into that space and that altered state. So, what you will find is when you go to work within the trance states, it will be easier for you because you're working on your attunement. And so that's the importance of it. It's not about the constant working in your trance power, because if you keep working in your trance power, and for those that may not know what that is, working in the trance power is really where we allow the guide to come forward and to communicate, okay, and to work, to experiment. When we work in the trance power, they're using what you have worked with, what you have been blending with, okay? And depending on what you've been manifesting and building between the two of you within that attunement will then depend on the phenomena and the experience and the outcome between you both. So it really is about recognizing that we can work within the trance power, but then we need to then go and sit within the trance power and keep sitting so that you can rejuvenate that energy that has been used. Because when you work within the trance power, the spirit body using that energy, they're using the energy. So that's often why we can feel a little bit tired, because we're really allowing ourselves to move into that deepness of the blending. And so that requires quite a bit of energy. So what I suggest is to always go back to sitting, go back to the blending. If you are completely new to trance, get to know who is there first. Understand who is it that walks with you from the spirit world. If you want to improve your connection with your blending, it's not about knowing every single thing about them, but it's just starting to recognize, okay, there's a difference there. As I sit and unfold that power, that feels different from my own power. I can feel the presence of somebody coming in close to me. Who are they? What is it you're feeling about that individual? What is it that you feel about them? What are they wanting to give you? So it's about the relationship of getting to know them so that you can build upon that blending with them. Okay. So you may find that as they come close, that you recognize more their presence and their essence being within the soul power of you. And that's where you can let go more. Okay. So really, it is about the dedication, the patience, the blending. But the blending can only happen once we understand how we are creating the experience. We've got to create it. We've got to set the environment right for the spirit world. And so that's also something that is beneficial to your trance foundation. Create the environment, okay? And make sure you're not disturbed as well. You want a space that's quiet, okay? Especially in the beginning, you just want that space where you can have it as a separate space to honor the spirit world. Because what will happen there, you see, is if you have a separate space that you can put to your trance development, there is a residual energy that starts to build within that particular atmosphere. And you'll find that residual energy will help with your unfoldment. So those that have looked into physical, you know that with physical mediumship, mediums use a cabinet, and they use the cabinet for the ectoplasm, for building the energy and manifesting it for the spirit world, and so that it can be contained within that cabinet, you see. So it's got one space that it can build. And really, let's just adapt that to trance. It's no different. You're just creating a space, whether that's the corner of your room or a separate room, and you're just allowing the energy to build there. And when somebody else comes round, a friend, and they sit in that chair and go, my goodness, this feels interesting. What a lovely energy it's got. And it's because you've been creating that power for the spirit world. So we have to be aware and pay attention to what we are creating, what we are doing to help with the blending and the surrendering process. So what I want to do now that I've explained that, is guide you into the experience, because we can sit here and I can talk to you about it, but the only way you're going to experience it is through your soul really opening its awareness to see what this is about, how you can become aware of it. So let's just all come together and just create this time and this space, everyone. So just get yourself nice and settled. Okay, wonderful. And I just want you to just close your eyes for me. And the first thing that we need to learn to do is just relax. And how do you relax? And so just start to become aware of the breath as you breathe in and as you breathe out. Just notice its rhythm. As it's starting to help you calm your conscious thoughts with each inward and each outward breath. Just telling yourself, I am calm. I am relaxed. And just use the breath to help move you into your experience. Allow the breath to help you calm the body. And so we are setting the environment to be more within that passive energy that we are creating with our awareness and with our breath. Just let go. As each breath becomes more slow and becomes more gentle. And just notice how the very energy itself around you starts to align with that passive space. Let yourself become passive. Let the thoughts come and go. And allow yourself to exist within the oneness of love that resides within you. And so where do you most feel that love? Where does the existence of your soul lie? and just breathe. Remember, you're aligning yourself to be at one with the soul, and we're guiding and opening the soul to be in alignment with that passive energy that is slowly building. And so just surrender into that passive space of your soul. Feel the deepness of it. Feel the love that you have for yourself. Feel the love of your soul that is unique to each of you. And just start to awaken the soul. Just feel it starting to expand as it starts to rise like the sun, starting to shine outwards into what we call the auric field. Very slowly, very gently, aligning your consciousness with your soul and just letting go into the freeness as you move further and further into the stillness. The power of you grows, manifests into the auric field, into the space around you. Just focus on the soul's growth and expansion with each breath that you take, nice and gentle, gracefully surrendering into the spiritual nature that you are. Becoming the light, becoming the power that you are. And just embrace and experience sitting within this beautiful power of your soul. And just let it build, manifest you, the light, the creation that you are. Build it into the auric field. And as we are creating this experience, our intention is really learning to move into that blending of the trance states, to feel comfortable and to move our love into the love of the spirit world that is only a thought away, that is closer than we recognize. And so very slowly, just expressing with your soul to the spirit world that you wish to become aware of that trance power that they bring in. Come and be with me. Come and let me know of your world. May I feel the trance vibration that you are starting to manifest and to bring it in with you. And so as we give our intention, so it is. And remember to breathe. Breathing in and slowly out to just start to align your soul with the experience of that trance power that your guide is bringing in around you into your atmosphere. You will experience it very differently. But just let it happen as they start to draw close to you. Just start to be more and more aware of that trance power that they bring in. It may feel heavy. It may feel quite strong. And as we are becoming more aware of this energy from the spirit world, just start to allow it to come and blend with your conscious mind. If it's still going up and down, and just allow this trance power to blend with your soul. Bring it closer into the auric field, using the breath, breath by breath. Just feel this power starting to come closer and aligning more with your soul. So just focus on their world. Focus on that trance power and focus on them bringing their presence over you, using the breath to gently feel their loving embrace surrounding you, comforting you, allowing you to feel their love, to feel their essence and presence, and just let it naturally build. using the breath and just move into that oneness. You're just going to become aware of my voice that starts to disturb the experience. And so just recognize where you have been within your attunement of that trance power with your team. And remember the gentleness of the breath. We're just going to focus on that more. And we're going to allow the breath to help us start to adjust back towards the conscious mind. But before we do that, I just want you to thank the spirit world. Give out a prayer of thanksgiving to them. And as you give out that prayer from your soul, just start to gradually feel the spirit world starting to step back as your guide, breath by breath, starts to blend less with the soul, less with the consciousness. And as this is happening, they are also calming down that trance power that they bring in. Just start to feel that power starting to lift off of you as it doesn't blend with your soul as much, as it moves back with them. Just become aware of how that feels. Does it feel lighter? Do you become aware of your own power and less of this trance, spirit-induced state? And so now, as you're listening to me, we're just going to focus on the breath now. And as you are breathing in and out, we're allowing our breath to connect back towards the conscious mind that has been resting. And now it's time for us to start to become more aware of the conscious, of the physical, of the environment that you sit within, using that breath to come out of your experience step by step, moment by moment, awakening the physical senses, hearing more of my voice, feeling the body, feeling your feet upon the floor, hearing the sounds once more that seemed to disappear. Just start to awaken, adjusting and coming back in your own time. Just gently coming back. Wonderful. If you've got some water, I always recommend to just have some water there. All right. So in a moment, I'm going to open it to questions, question and answers, and just to hear from some of you of your experience. But just before I do that, what we've got to recognize with this particular sit-in is that some of you may do it and think, what am I meant to be feeling? What's going on? What is it I'm meant to be becoming aware of? And that in itself will keep your conscious mind there all the time because you're waiting for an experience to happen. This usually occurs when we are really not trying as much. So it's about learning to recognize how you can be more in touch with the inner soul of you, because this experience isn't to be felt with the conscious mind. It's not something that you can do with the analytical aspect of you, but it's something that can be experienced and known and felt through the soul. because the soul is what the spirit world work with. They communicate through the blending of the soul, which is different to our material thinking, analytical mind. So what we've got to recognize is, are we given enough time for the soul space to occur first, for you to become aware of the soul, to move out of the way, to then become aware of what they are trying to give you, what it is they're trying to do with you. And so it's about recognizing that the first time you do it, it may be a bit light, it may not be as heavy or as deep, but the more and the more you practice it, perhaps you notice it starts to get a bit deeper. Perhaps you notice, okay, something is taking place here. And so that's where you've got to just create that foundation of practice to understand how you can move forward with the exercise. So that's really what I wanted to share with you all today. And I really do hope that you use it and that you become aware of it. Some of you may have become aware of it today. You may have felt the presence of your guide in your space, but then all of a sudden there's just this power that you just fall into. And that's what we're learning to experience. It's going to be different for each of us, but I'm just going to turn the recording off. So just give me 1 second.